First, I'm going to ask you a question and then I'm going to give you an exercise to do. And then I want to hear in the comments, I would love to hear what you find. The question, what is love to you? How do you know you're loved? For you to be loved, what do you need to feel? How do you need to feel? Okay, I said one question, those were three, right? But you want to dig deeper. And so answer those questions on a piece of paper. And then, this is the exercise, go and check your Venus. So what sign she's in and what, and then, house and then conjunctions, particularly conjunctions, but also squares and oppositions. And then if you know that already, or if you want to do some studying around that, researching, I'll link below the tools for that. Some of my videos and then some of the books, all, not expensive, for you to, if you need some help with that, right? Extra help. And then you marry the two. So your answer before you looked at your Venus and then your Venus. And I'm not going to bet you because I don't want to, I'm not rich yet. But I suspect you will find that the two are the same or very similar. So how you feel what love is to you and how you feel loved is very much how your Venus is, right? So I would love to hear how that experiment went and exercise, how it went. In the comments, let me know. So today, as you can imagine, therefore, we are talking love. Love is, what is love? Love is, well, I will have an answer, astrologically speaking. And it's not really an answer that you haven't heard before, but I imagine. But yeah, this is like explaining it, because the others maybe don't have the explanation. This is why I love astrology, because it kind of explains it. It gives me the rationale behind it. So I was also going to say, this is a very important subject, well, in life in general, but I mean currently, because I'm not sure when this video is going to go out, but it's either going to be Venus is in her shadow post retrograde, but I think she will still be very much retrograde, I think, when I post this, in Leo. And so there is that, whenever Venus or any of the planets, Mars onwards, are retrograde, and it's particularly important. But even the other, Mercury as well. It's just that Mercury is much more often retrograde. In fact, there's 3 times a year, where Venus is every 18 months or 2 years. So that's one reason, but also because we have South Node in Libra till January 2025. So, and Libra is ruled by Venus, and Libra is about relationship to others. And I imagine that most of us define love by how we are loved by another person. Most of us. Well, yeah, I suspect, I don't know, but let me know in the comments. So what I want to talk about today is, I want to explain what love is astrologically speaking, and how astrology answers that question, the question of what love is. So the answer, or what sets us up for the answer, is the placements of Venus, in the sense her domicile and her exaltation. So when planet is in domicile, that means she's at home. Domicile, dome, I'm not sure exact word in Latin, but it basically means home. She's at home, she's comfortable, she's like at home, right? Like your own home. Imagine your own home, not maybe the one you live in. I hope it is still comfortable, but the one that you would create for yourself, like you are at home there because you feel comfortable. So, so 2 domiciles are Taurus and Libra, and she's very happy in both. But it's the exaltation of any sign that gives us its highest expression, its most evolved expression, and it's the metaphor with or the whole symbolism around home and exaltation is also fitting even outside of astrology language, well, particularly the domicile piece, in that when we are comfortable somewhere, we are just potentially not growing, not evolving, not expanding. So it can be a bit of a stagnating and dull or dulled place to be in, to be at home, right? A bit too sedate, too sedentary as well. So not enough movement, not enough growth, not enough life, basically. And I have Mercury in domicile. In fact, Mercury in Gemini. Just watch any of my videos, you will realize, and you might not even need to hear me say it. But I even go as far as to say that domicile, even though it's like in traditional Hellenistic astrology, it's considered to be a good thing. And in many ways, I also agree it is a good thing. But I think it actually carries far more downsides than it's talked about. But I'm not going to go into it here much. There might be another video. Let me know. I always ask, at the end of the video, maybe I should do it halfway through so people actually hear it, because they might leave earlier and not watch till the end. But leave me any comments below you'd like me to talk about something else, and as long as it's something I know what to talk about it or how to talk about it, right? I will, most likely. So I would love to hear your views. So let me know if there's other topics you want me to talk about, within astrology and life. But yeah, so domicile, so when a planet is in domicile, it can be just lazy, basically. And it's just too easy and complacent and almost like a spoiled kid as well, I find. And then you have the others, which are detriment and fall, actually. And they are, for Venus, they're Aries. Fall is opposite of exaltation, so that's Virgo, and then detriment is opposite to domicile, which in Venus case is therefore Aries and Scorpio. And those are fantastic placements, actually. I adore them. I have so many of them because they force you. You have no choice but to integrate. It's a tougher journey, but it's a blessing. It doesn't look like a blessing. It often doesn't feel like a blessing, but it's a blessing. Trust me. I have so many of them. I just know what I'm talking about. Okay. And I have nothing in exaltation. Boo-hoo. Exaltation is, like I say, where the planet is highest. Like it's, she has reached the end of the road, and it's like the happy ending. It's like the conclusion is beautiful, and it's like everything makes sense. It's just the highest, the most beautiful, the most exalted expression of that archetype. So if Venus is love, amongst other things, then its exaltation place will be the answer to what love is. It will be the love that we all unreservedly, unquestionably, let's say, recognize as love. And so in Venus case, that's Pisces. But I want to talk a little bit about the previous two placements in terms of domiciles and exaltation, just the three in total I'm talking about, which is Taurus. And so how that journey, like Taurus, Libra, Pisces, what's the journey? In fact, they make an inconjunct, like they make, I think it's called Finger of God, which is an aspect, a constellation in the chart I don't really work much with. I just find it a bit too, I don't know, just too technical. And yet, I mean, you can visually see it. It does. It's like a point, but it's just so, it's like whenever I studied it, it was just so too much jargon, and I just didn't really. So yeah, so if you know about Yod's eye, Finger of God, which is what this aspect makes, it's like Pisces and Taurus are in sextile, and then this is in conjunct, from Taurus to Libra in conjunct, and Pisces to Libra in conjunct, and those that trigonometry is a Finger of God. So it's a mystical, it's a very spiritual, it's a fated apparently aspect. And these things are telling when you're understanding the full story of this particular journey of Venus from Taurus to Libra to Pisces. And so in Taurus we have the love of the self, the self pleasures, because Taurus is the first, well, it's Aries and then Taurus, but in terms of Venus, it's the first archetype where it's the self. It's the self. It's all about the self, self-reliance, Taurus. I have a whole video about Taurus, which you'll be able to find if I remember. I'll link it. If not, remind me if you want to. But where I talk about Taurus in great depth and length, but so Venus in Taurus is ultimately about the self-love, but that's a self-love not in today's world when we talk about self-love in terms of self-improvement, self-help, like one's evolution, growth, transformation. I don't know, can't think of other kind of buzzwords that we use nowadays on social media. It's not that. It's self-love. I mean, it is as well, but it's far more sensual. It's far more physical. It's far more the love of the physicality of existence. It's less intellectual. It's less abstract. It's just very real. Like, it's almost like the self is the body, right? And so therefore, this is what makes up the self, and therefore, the Taurian Venus loves everything to do with the body. In fact, I always think of a friend I have who has Venus in Taurus, and that's the conversation. It's like her love is for everything bodily, like literally, but also in every other sense. Whenever she describes any love, she always talk about the physical qualities of it. And I don't mean in a kind of a greedy material sense whatsoever, as she's so not that. She could be a bit more that for her own sake, but she isn't. But it's like when she talks about love, because whenever we talk about anything we love, we don't just talk about the Venus in that sign of ours, right? Our Venus, like her sign and all that, but it's like her sign is also, and her qualities, our natal Venus, are also expressed in how we talk about it, right? In what we say, not just what we love, but how we say it, right? And I also remember she's very sensual in her body expression, like as she speaks, like about things that she loves. She touches herself, like, unconsciously, like a lot of heart, gestures. And so anyway, so that's Venus in Taurus is the first stage of love. And I know there is a whole Greek thing about different philias, which is a love. There is, but yeah, I'm not gonna go into that. It doesn't correspond to the number of Venus. It's just gonna complicate the picture, which is, not here for that today, at least. So that's Venus in Taurus, so the basic love in a way, the first love, right? The first love of the self, and it shows you the nature, rather the order of things, like how in life isn't like that, and therefore none of us have that story. But that's the idea. The idea is that one looks to astrology to understand the stages, and it's like this is the first stage, and then the second stage is the other. So, and this is the one we talk about the most, which is why one of the previous videos I talked about I mentioned how to be mindful of when astrologers talk about Venus rather, that to be mindful, are they talking about the Taurian Venus, which is then therefore all about self-love and the body and the sensuality and the material world, and what else? There was one other thing, value as well, which is Venus everywhere is ultimately value, but this one is less about relationships and love in that romantic sense relationships. That's not Taurus Venus at all. That's Libra Venus. And what I found, and certainly from my own experience, but also from just being alive for as long as I have been, which is a lot, half a century and plus, I observed that we know love from another, and that's just how it is. It's like we know ourselves, but also most painfully from another, but also not most accurately, but most complexly. Like it flashes out parts of us that we have not seen, in that sense, complexity, and then it also flashes out parts of us that we don't like. So it's very difficult facing the other. I think my very last one, on the 2 weeks ago, I posted about how hard it is to do Libra archetype and 7th house, and how that's okay. That's where we are at our journey of evolution. But yeah, and therefore love, when it's like seeing ourselves in the mirror. How else do we know about ourselves? But you see, we do, right? It's just that we all of a sudden kind of see ourselves in better and more when we get to Libra and 7th house. We know ourselves even in Aries already. We're so aware of ourselves, like but we are not, in Aries, we're not actually, in fact, I should say, we're not aware of ourselves. We're aware of our experiences. Awareness is something we kind of gain further down the line, particularly in Taurus, in Gemini, but also in actually in Taurus, in the sense that we see what we have and we are. But even in Aries, we have a sense of self, a very strong sense of self. And in that sense, it's awareness. What I meant, like kind of self-awareness. Aries doesn't think, just like archetype, right? Not person, archetype. It just does, and then possibly goes, okay, I like that, didn't like that, oh, look what they did to me, what they, it's just like kind of going to those contemporary exhibitions nowadays where they're all about sensory experiences. That's Aries. Like, oh my God, look at me in this environment, look at me in that environment, just having experiences of the self, the more different experiences, like, are just giving you that sense of who you are in that context. And that's the fun, that's the excitement, that's the adventure of Aries. And so my point there being is that we know, it's just that, so there is already that kind of awareness, and then it gets more and more awareness as we travel along the zodiac wheel, and then we get to the 7th house Libra, but that awareness that comes from the other is like a next level drug. Like, we are just on this, I don't know what kind of drug, but like, I don't know, like something that was just gonna, or a next level, like you go on those rides, the rides as in fun fair, fun parks, or whatever they're called. I don't know, don't go to those places. But, like now it's like, I did the little bumper cars, and now I'm going to go on this like a ride, big ride. So it's like a next level sensation. That's why we are hooked on it. But we haven't figured it out. We are not doing it well yet at all, the interrelationships with another. And I think that's the previous video. I'll be linking below. But it's hyper sensational. It is so sensational in terms of senses. It's like a sensory overload. So we are stuck on it. It's a sensory overload, and we don't know what to do with it, and we still haven't figured out what to do with it. So we have packed so much meaning into it because, God, the fact that we still don't know what to do with it, we're still stuck in this dynamic of the other, and other is just so powerful in whatever shape or form that means in your life, like, and translates into your life. The sheer intensity of it is like what keeps us stuck there. And so we have lumped so much in it. So amongst other things, love. Now it is love, and there is certainly love from the other, but what we haven't moved on from that in terms of understanding. And when I say we haven't moved on, remember that I'm not speaking to you specifically. I don't know your chart or your life story. Only those two will help me actually speak to you in a meaningful way about your particulars regarding love and relationships. But I'm talking, the overall, the general, story of how life concepts, human concepts, and astrology, how they meet and how they interlace and interpret each other and help each other make meaning that makes sense to us. So that's, like I say, Libra, we are stuck there, and we mostly consider love like, when someone loves us, or rather, maybe it's sometimes easier to understand, when someone doesn't love us, we take that as we are not loved, right? We are not lovable. We are certainly not loved by them, but we are not lovable. And even if we know by now, meaning we are 21st century, so, we have shifted. We know we're lovable, but do we really know it, right? Like, do we know that we should think we're lovable, and we will find a way to feel love, or even to feel lovable, but nothing will replace that intensity that when we're loved by another. It's, in a way, it's very physical, and I don't mean that in the sense of matter, but like mathematical, I suppose, maybe is a better one, because it's like love by two. Although maybe that's not the best example, because if you're not self-loved, then the fact that someone else loves you is just one. It's not two. It's not 1 + 1 = 2, because you are not self-loving, maybe. But if you are, and then someone else loves you, that's even more. But so in any case, whether you self-love or not, the fact that someone else loves you will always be so much more intense than any self-love you can give yourself, I believe, from, like I say, my experience. And so we equate love with external confirmation of it, right? We equate our sense of worth, of love, our sense of lovableness from external, from other people. But where we partly, I spoke about where we're stuck, but then when we look at where Venus is exalted, and this is all the Venus journey, right? We find the answer of how to, or even like find the answer like what love is. So by definition, that the exaltation is in neither of these two, or rather, at least by definition, by extension, maybe that's a better one, that Venus is exalted in a sign that it's neither Taurus nor Libra, would tell you that love is neither self-love of Taurus or love of the other in Libra. Now, what's interesting, and I'll talk about the actual love in Pisces, or the Piscean love, the ultimate love, what love is. But before then, I just want to address this piece about the two, so the journey from Taurus to Libra, and then from Libra to Pisces are both in conjunctions, both are quincunxes. So the two signs, each of these pairings is, both of them are in conjuncts. Tells you how this is, like, we reject this path, we reject what I'm about to share. We are unsatisfied, we don't want that love. It's like, or rather, it's not enough. It's like, and I know I speak from personal, I mean, I do speak from personal experience of my journey with love, and but I'm sure I'm not alone. So I'm assuming, and let me know in the comments as always just how this is landing and what your experience of love and your experience of what I'm about to share. So the inconjunct is saying that self-love, it's like uncomfortable. The two signs are not really, they don't really get each other. They're not of the same cloth, like they're not of the same flavor. And so they're like, yeah, if they, they don't want to hang out together, right? They're the kind of two people that wouldn't really, sitting at the bar, wouldn't have anything to say to each other, would bore each other or would be uninteresting to each other. And so there's no connective tissue, right? There's no easy channel of communication or flow of their energies or whatever. So that's Taurus and Libra, and then Libra and Pisces. So, and what this speaks when it comes to love, it tells us that self-love is not really agreeable to the love between two people. And if you think about this, is that piece where we always worry that, it's a potential problem in a relationship if we love ourselves more than we love the other, or rather we love ourselves first, I don't know about more, but certainly first, then we love someone else. So it's like, if you want to put yourself first in your relationship with someone, then that could be a problem. And that could be a difficulty in communicating, in the other person being understanding of it. It's seen as a threat to the love, right? But it's not the love, because Venus is not exalted in either of these two. And so there's that. And then we get to the seventh house Libra part of this love journey, where it's all about the love comes from the other, and the love exists only between two people, right? You need that, right? Two people to have love, type of thing. Now that very much doesn't sit well with the Pisces. Now I have to speak about Pisces because it wouldn't make sense why it's not sitting well with Pisces. So Pisces is the sign at the end of the zodiac, and it's like, remember when I speak of astrology, Aquarius is the final, it's us complete. We are done. As me, as Maya, in this body, in this lifetime, I'm done. In my 11th house, I'm done. And then we come to the 12th house, or Pisces, and we are in that transition of, like, we are getting ready to be reborn, and in the first house again, if, that's my belief, that we reincarnate until we are done with the desires and all that. And so we are getting ready to, and how are we getting ready to reborn again? By just dissolving, by shedding, by almost like just removing our attachment to everything that we have become. So it's like, dissolving the ego. I mean, ego, there's part to that story, true, that we're dissolving the ego, but it's more than that. It's just the whole identity piece. It's not just ego, memories and and accomplishments. And sure, maybe it is just ego. I don't know. It has such a bad rep, ego does. So I don't like to bring it up so lightly. And we are basically transcending our everything we have been. We are moving beyond that, and that's so it's a death in a way, but it's a realm of loss, if anything. So death is loss, loss is death. There is that, but we were getting reborn, so it's not death in that sense. It's a sense of us just kind of like a soul leaves the body, like it elevates, it goes out, and now you can see what it was really all about, and you can't up until that point. And so you can see that why anything that's attached to an identity and any personality would be just not palatable to that stage of our evolution, Pisces stage of our evolution, where love, i.e. Venus, is exalted, which is to say that is what love is, because it's the highest expression of love, i.e. Venus, right? Now, you can say, well, love is all these other things, and yes, it is. Yes, it is. But, well, yes, but it's... I think the reason I'm maybe not actually, let's not call everything else love and because for one reason only, love is meant to be goodness only, like to feel good only, like only to feel good, like it's the remedy for everything, right? It's like the ultimate medicine. Well, that's why I'm not sure I want my answer to what love is to be sitting also in Libra and Taurus and anywhere else in between, because it's not remedial enough. Because, just how do I have to speak more to that? Like, just think of so many love stories that broke your heart, but in a way that, actually traumatized you and set you back in your journey, caused you so much pain. Pain is not a bad thing. Suffering is not a bad thing in itself, but it's... that's not how love feels, I don't think. And so we go to Venus exalted placement in Pisces to know what real love feels. Now that love feels transpersonal. If the Libra piece was personal, because it's between two people, and then obviously also in Taurus it's personal, but it's to do with one person, not the other, right? But both are personal. Then in Pisces it's transpersonal. So it's like, this love is not really a verb anymore. It's a noun. It is love, right? It's not, you don't love, you are love, right? That's the difference. So in Taurus and Libra, we talked about and used the word love as verb, like, so I love myself, I love the other, I'm not loved, and I'm blah, 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 to love, da, da, da. Where in Pisces, and that's what definition is. Well, I mean, definition of a word defines verbs as well as adverbs as well as nouns. I get that. But it kind of... Okay, I'm just going to skip that piece, actually. Maybe that was irrelevant, really. But in Pisces, we answer the question of what love is as if love is a noun. And I think that's correct. Because that love, in every single a second of your life, if you can plug into it, will be like an instant injection of, well, I don't know what, but something most blissful and just like that makes everything okay. And so okay, so let me talk a little bit about what that is like. And this is the danger. I think there is a whole video on Virgo Pisces axis, and it's pretty abstract, because once you get into Pisces, it's like words are just they fall short unless I'm writing poetry and speaking poetry here, which I'm not. So at that stage, a stage of Pisces, 12th house, we are gone past the person. We see their spirit, let's say. I don't like to use these words. I like to think of different words, but sometimes nothing comes. Their soul. We see their totality. We don't see just the two-dimensional Libra, societally, relationally confined and defined and limited, therefore, self, right? we see everything. We see everything that, in that other video where I talked about, there is so much that we are hiding as well as we are giving and we are sharing with the world, but there is so much we're hiding. And well, in Pisces, from Pisces perspective, we see everything. We see the hiding pieces and the non-hiding pieces. And so Piscean love can feel like, I don't know if you've ever been on the receiving end of either Moon in Pisces or Venus in Pisces, or Pisces rising, or even Pisces sun, but I would not necessarily, because if they have different moons, no. It's really Moon in Pisces, Venus in Pisces, and Pisces rising potentially, but Moon and Venus particularly. Then you'll know what I'm talking about. It feels like they love. It's almost like if when you love someone, in the kind of the romantic trope is like you look into each other's eyes and you feel really seen by that person, right? That's kind of Scorpio kind of love, or any sort of other earthly love as well. But Pisces, it's like, and I have, my whole family is either Venus in Pisces or Moon in Pisces, so I again speak from experience. It's like they're just like, who are you looking at? Like, who are you loving? I mean, and it's, but you feel good, but you kind of like, I don't know who are you talking about? Who are you talking to? That's not me. And it's not even, that's not me, like what you listed isn't me. Then a bit of that, but it's a sense. It's like they literally don't look at you. They don't need you. They don't need to know anything about you kind of feeling. They will still love you. And I'm talking, so just maybe a little point, which hopefully won't derail this video too much, but it's like tangentially speaking. But it just speaks to that every time, at least when I speak in these videos, it's like I want to draw attention to how this is so not about one person or any person with any of the aspects, because those people in my life, I mentioned it, neither they're my family, so there's so much dysfunction there, in love terms in particular, as there are in every family, right? I mean, heavy, well, like just bucket load of it, of dysfunction. And yet, when these archetypes speak through us, even, it's almost like we channel them sometimes purely, more purely than other times. Or maybe even just me being then, by that point, although this was even earlier, when I was less versed in astrology, less fluent in astrology language, you can just sense, it's almost like there is an archetype coming through my mother, my cousins, my sisters, my aunts, my grandparents, whatever, all of them, some Pisces stuff. I could just see the archetype, and I know that their own mess, their own stuff that has, like messed me up. Like the second before, a minute after, it's like it's both, right? But you can still, the archetype still can be almost like, what's the word? Separated, like isolated. That's the word I was looking for. When you're working in chemical lab, you can isolate certain ingredients or elements or whatever, right? You can isolate an archetype in your experience with a person and still see the person for all the rest of their chart. And it's not even about the rest of their chart. It's like the moment the archetypes come through us in our daily living, they are messed up. Like they are humanized more than they are in their pure form. So when I speak of archetypes, I try to keep the distinction, like I keep telling you about it so you're clear, because it's important. That's how you get really refined understanding of astrology, and you're working, and therefore of yourself and the world, therefore, right? And that's your goal. If you're here, that's your goal. It's got to be, otherwise you wouldn't be watching. Is to kind of really get all the richness and nuance of what it's like to be human, right? And those archetypes give you that. But there is an archetype in its sort of beyond human form kind of expression, and then there is an archetype the way we express it, and it still comes out. Part of it comes out, or rather, partly in our expression, it comes out purely. But the person, me, who is channeling the archetype, you as a receiving, the other person on the other end of me speaking like that, will get the rest of me with all of the other archetypes, all of my chart, right? So that the archetype is never cleanly spoken out to me ever fully, but you can isolate it if you have really, like, if you have trained your ear and your eye and your smell and whatever, right? So when you're on the receiving end of Pisces love, it's it's like you can trust the unconditionality of that love. However you are and whoever you are, you can trust it because it feels like it's yours. And yet it's not specific enough that it cannot be someone else's as well. And that's the unconditional love, the divine love, if you like, as well, even though that's not my terminology so much, but it is relevant and it's very much that. And it's like it is, that's what I mean by it's a noun. It's like you have just tapped into a person, or rather, it's not you acting it, it's not you verbing it, it's not a verb. You just pull this thing that is, and you just gave it. So it's like a noun, right? The verb is you giving it, but the thing you're giving is a noun. It exists, right? It's like it exists. It doesn't. And so the conflict, to come back to this, and I'm wrapping this up, when I said that the in conjunction, which is a conflict, which is like a discrepancy, it's like oil and water, not really mixing well. They don't really speak the same language. So Libra, Pisces, right? Like I spoke of Taurus, Libra. So Libra, Pisces, there is this piece. In Libra, there is an object. You need something to love. But in Pisces, you don't need, you are love. That's the key difference. And so that's why I ultimately, although now I'm being a bit maybe too pedantic, but I'd like to be pedantic about language. I'm Pluto in Virgo, ruled by Mercury in Gemini. So, I mean, I do love to get really precise, like clean with my language. And so when you are in Libra and Taurus, you need, it's not love, because the moment you need to love something, that's not love, that's liking. Like you like something, it gives you pleasure. It makes you feel good, right? It's causal. It's dependent. It's codependent and dependent, right? Where love in Pisces is independent, archetypally speaking. It's like whether there is anything to be loved or not, you are love. And I have lived this. I don't live this day in, day out, not at all. I'm messed up as you, as anyone else. But I have actually lived this for a brief period of time. I didn't particularly like it. It was too like, it's like, well, I'm just gonna pack it and go. I mean, what's the point of living on this dirty earth of beauty and ugliness joined together if I'm just gonna be so evolved? And I mean, it was, I'm not saying I won't, but I did experience that. I'm serious. I did very much was love. Like I was practicing for a whole summer and a bit longer to just be loved. The longest meditation it was Uranus opposition. It was in my early 40s. And it's like you are, and I remember I would walk out outside and someone, friend or someone would comment like, oh my God, what you are so, wow, like beautiful, but they didn't mean like pretty. They just meant like, I think they would say like you are glowing or something. And it just, it's like your love. That's my point. You are love. Therefore, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter what's around you. To be love is the test of it, or the practice there is to be love irrespective of what's around you. Because the moment you start to be dependent on what's around you, you're back in Libra or back in Taurus or anywhere else before. So you haven't evolved. Like the love hasn't evolved to its ultimate expression. And back to, and I'm ending it, back to that piece about, yes, you can call it love if you want, if you're not as pedantic as me, but none of other loves give you that instant knowledge, instant recognition that is purest form of love that you can just bask. It's like you're free. It's like there's no pain. All the suffering is gone. Everything. I mean, it's like it's like I said. I don't know. I mean, I don't do drugs, nor have I've had anyway. That's neither here nor there. But my point is, I have never experienced this in any other way other than by being love. And like I say, we can all tap into it. You don't have to live like that. We can all tap into it just for the sake of like experiment, just like tap into it, and it's like nothing else is like it. So after that, you can't call anything else love. You can call it care, you can call it love because it's easier. How else are you going to call it? Because there's no language yet for it in our day-to-day living. We do call it love, but it's not the love. It's not the answer to what love is question. Okay, that's it. I hope this was interesting, entertaining, educational, all the things that I aim to do and deliver to you, both like education and entertainment. And to kind of, get you thinking and just make you see things differently, make you see astrology differently, think about astrology differently, and etc. etc. Any questions, let me know below, and I'll see you next week.